We use methods on a regular basis in C# and may not even know it. The command words that we use, things such as readline or writeline, are all predefined methods created in C# to make life easier for the coders. But what is a method? A method is a block of code created by the user to make the task of creating an application easier. Every method has an identifier or name to identify that method from the others. When you call a method, the code inside the method is executed as seen here. The purpose of the method is to break down the code into smaller, more manageable parts, to make the programmer's life easier, as when the code is broken up like this, it makes it easier to find bugs that may occur. When you first create a program on Visual Studio, you are given the main method, and here is where you'd usually put all your code. But if we wanted to create a new method within this application, we would have to go out of the main method's span of control, but we'd still want to stay within the class's span of control. The method we're going to create is going to be a simple hello world method which prints out to the console hello world, and so we're going to call the method hello world. We are also going to make this method a void method, which means that it won't be returning any values. We are also going to leave the brackets empty, as at this point we're not passing through any values. We now type in console.writeline hello world, and our method is complete. All we need to do now is call it in the main method. As you can see, the console now has written hello world. So let's start breaking down methods so we can understand them better. The top line of the method is known as the header. This line is to tell the compiler what a method is and what it is doing, and whether it's going to return a value or not. The next important part of a method is the body. The body contains all the code that you want to have executed. When you call the method, and once it has finished performing its code, then control will be given back to the main method. If we want to pass information into a method, you have to put in some parameters. These parameters go within the brackets when calling it and when creating it. A good example for this is an addition program where you pass two numbers into the method. Not all methods require parameters, as seen from our hello world method. We will now create an addition method where we'll be passing through two parameters that will be of an integer data type. We're able to pass through two parameters by putting a comma between the two parameters. Once these have been passed through, we can use them like any other variable in our code. Now we have the parameters set up, we must also put the value we are passing through in the call of the method. Because we are passing two values through, we'll separate them with a comma. We can also return values with methods, and in this case of our addition method, this is what we're going to want to do. To return a value, we must first edit the header of the method. What we need to do is remove the void type, as we are now returning a value, and instead replace it with the type of data that we will be returning. So in this case, we'll be changing it to int for integer. Now the header is set up in the body of the method, we must also have a return statement in it so we can return the values. The return command is how we return the value from the method. It is important when calling your method that you pass through the parameters correctly. For instance, if we pass through a variable with a different data type, then it could cause an error, or could even cause the compiler to crash, as it wasn't expecting that data type. Another example is to ensure that you pass the right amount of parameters through, as if you don't, then the program will have a compiler error and not run. You can also call a method but ignore the returned value. Although this will not crash the program, it is bad practice to return a value and then ignore it. So far, we have entered the value as a parameter. So far, we have entered values as the parameters. But a parameter can also be a variable that you pass through and would look like this. But in this case, if you wanted the program to change the variable values while out of the main method, it would require it to be referenced. To do this, we add a parameter type called ref, which stands for reference, and put it in front of the parameter we are passing through, as well as ref. Doing this means that the variable will change throughout the program, meaning you can read and write the variable. This should really only be used if you need to change the variable in the method for their entire code. The last thing I'm going to talk about for methods is the out parameter type. The out parameter type allows you to create a parameter that has not previously been initialized in the code, and so allows you to do things like this. That said, You have to ensure that the parameter is initialized somewhere in the body of the method before the value is returned, and the compiler will now also check for this. So, to summarize methods. Methods are an important part of programming and are supported in all languages. We use methods so we can break down code into more manageable chunks so we can reuse the code that we have instead of rewriting it. All information has been taken from computingwithtom.co.uk or msdn.microsoft.com. Thank you for listening.